What's up, everyone? So as you can see, I still have outer studs. Every other lug, those held up pretty good, but I don't have a single center tread stud left on this rear tire. They're completely spit out. Now, it didn't really wreck the lug as they come out, and I don't see many, or actually I don't see any evidence of them breaking off at the shank in the lug. It honestly just looks like the tires didn't hold the screws in, and with the way that rear tire was spinning, it really doesn't surprise me. So as you can see, the front tire fared quite a bit better. The studs fared quite a bit better because, as you can see, the tire's still not doing so hot. And if you're wondering why the front wasn't pushing, or I wasn't able to push the front super hard, it's because I have relatively no side lug traction whatsoever. But due to the fact that the tire is not spinning 100 bazillion miles an hour like the rear one, the stud stayed in. It's almost a shame to de-stud it, but I think I have a better solution. So I mentioned in episode 2 the importance of marking bolts to see if they move. Well, here is a good, perfect reason as to why I mark bolts, because as you can see, that nut's turned almost 90 degrees, just under 90 degrees, we'll call it 75 degrees. I don't think it's to the point of being finger tight. It's obviously got an eye lock on it, so it's never going to be really finger tight, but it definitely loosened up after some hard riding. So if you didn't happen to catch episode 2 is all about maintenance and putting in these studs into the front and rear tires. They are a 6mm self-tapping, I believe 3/8 long shank screw. And while they did pretty well on the front, they didn't fare so well in the rear. My solution to this? 5/16 by 1 1/4 carriage bolts. Yeah. There's a big difference there. I believe, as the old saying goes, size matters. I don't think traction is going to be an issue anymore. I'm going to put 100 of these per tire. You're probably wondering how I plan to do this with a tire on the bike. Well, I'm not going to. So traditionally, obviously if you watched episode 2, you saw how I did this, but I took a drill with a hex driver, and I just screwed them into the lug. This time around, I'm going to come up from the bottom. However, it's a real pain in the butt to drill from inside of a tire, obviously. So I'm going to take this handy dandy drill bit, and I'm going to run the drill from this side down through the tire. I'm obviously going to pull the wheel off, pull the tube out, pull the tire off the wheel. But first, I'm going to mark all my drill locations before I take the wheel off. So we have 40 rows of tread. That means I'm going to have extra carriage bolts, actually. That'll be 80 per tire maybe, or we'll do, I'm not sure. I was going to do 50 rows of 2, outside 2, inside 2, outside 2, inside 2. I might change that up and put a center one every other, because we have 3 lugs here. I'll go outside and then center, outside and then center, with the 2 in the center anyways. But yeah, that works out actually really, really well. So I'm going to remove the studs while I have the wheel on the tire, just so I can spin it. I am going to then remove the wheel, pull the tube out, and we'll start drilling the tire. You can see some of them are actually backing their way out on the edges here. The rubber is super soft. I've heard several theories actually this week that the reason that the studs are spitting out is because I studded a used tire. Apparently that is a no-no in the professional studding world. Normally you stud a brand new tire because the rubber is much firmer. Once they're in dirt, they're no good for studding, at least. So you might be wondering, Am I worried about where the studs went, or where did the studs go? Well, chances are this summer I'm going to be putting tubes in at least one of the bikes here. I would have wager a guess that we're going to be putting tubes in all of those bikes, but like you said, the carriage bolts should solve this problem. The only thing I'm going to lose is the nut, and if I lose the nut, you're going to completely blow apart the tube, and you'll know about it anyways. Alright, that is all of the rear studs out. Quite a bit more studs to pull out of the front, unfortunately, but it'd be nice to save them because I can always put them in the 80 and lose them out of that. For those that have never taken a tire off on a dirt bike, this is what's known as a rim or wheel lock. There is a rubber wedge. I'm not sure the exact technical term for it, but it's shaped like a trapezoid wedge. It matches the contour of the wheel actually. And as you tighten this nut on this bolt shank, it pulls the wedge down, and the trapezoid shape forces the bead of this tire up against the wheel. That way the tire cannot spin in relation to the wheel. In order to remove the tire, you need to loosen the wheel lock. On a CRF or XR100, it's a 12mm wrench. You don't have to take it completely off, but just enough to start moving it. This one's severely corroded, so I have a feeling I'm going to have a hard time getting it out, but we'll see how this goes. Next, you're going to pull the valve core out, remove all the air out of the tube. Drop the valve stem in the empty trash can, thankfully. You can use a little removable tool like this to remove the valve core, assuming you can get it loose with it. There it is. You can actually hear the bead unseating itself. That is a good sign. So you do have to remove the nut that holds the tube in, because we are removing the tube. With the bead broken down, you can see how it goes down below the seat here. You can grab a tire spoon and you can start levering the tire as you go around. I'm hoping that this tire is pretty soft and it's going to come off easy. I did the rear tire, or the rear tube, sorry, in the 80 last weekend, and I ended up pinching the tube, the brand new tube that I put in it, almost immediately, and I think I got it with the tire spoon itself. So be very careful if you're reusing the tube, like in this case. If you have some tire changing tips and tricks, or you make a video of it, feel free to drop it in the comments. Alright, it actually didn't come out too bad. Let's see if we can't squeeze the tube out of here. Try to be somewhat gentle with it. Again, especially if you're reusing it. Not the best, but I've seen worse. So for this exercise, I'm actually going to put the tire back on the bead without the tube in it. Slot the axle back in here. That way I just have a rotating axis to drill holes on. Some people make stands in order to do this, or tire studding. I'm cheap, and this is like 5 extra minutes worth of work for a lot less money. All right, we're rigged back up. Should be good for some drilling. I talked a little bit about pattern earlier. So I bought 100 bolts per tire. Turns out there's 40 rows of tread, 40 rows of main center tread that I've been using. So I'm actually going to use the same exact pattern that I used on the smaller studs, where I'm going to use these every other outside lugs and then every other inside lug, and I'll put 2 in each. So that'll leave me with 20 studs left over with the 40 rows. So I'm going to do every other center triple tread in the center as well. So it's just a regular old high-speed drill bit, no pilot point, no center drill. It is slightly oversized. I believe it is a 348. I think next time I'm going to do a 375. I just drilled a pilot hole so I didn't look like an idiot on camera. You have to screw the carriage bolts in, so that might take up a little bit of time. I'm hopefully going to be able to suck them in with the nut, but we'll see how they fit once I'm done drilling the holes. It's nice to see that there's no metal skin in the tire like a car tire. I was actually dreading doing this, and this shouldn't be too bad. Obviously I'm eyeballing this a little bit, and the drill bit does walk. Try to get as center as the lug as possible. So we got all the center lugs drilled. Came out pretty good. Now I'm going to go on to these side lugs here. I found that using the old stud hole makes for a decent pilot hole if you can get it started on it. Alright, got all the lugs drilled for the back. We'll pop the rear tire off, and I'll toss some bolts in it. As you can see, works pretty good. I think I chose the height right too. Once I have the nut on there, there won't be too much stud above the lug. So I ended up going with Nylox. I had considered lock washers. I had also considered flat washers, but this was an easy, simple solution. And since I was going to be putting them on with an impact anyway, and once they're on, they're probably on there for good, I think we'll be all set. This is a lot more tedious than it looks. Oh wait, no, it's about as tedious as it looks. earlier I made mention of using nylock style nuts. I think I made a slight miscalculation on either the pilot hole size I drilled or the ability for the rubber to actually capture the carriage bolt, because I have to force the carriage bolt up into the tire with a good amount of force before I can impact them on. I think next time around I'm going to go with either a serrated style flange nut or maybe something along the lines of a lock nut and a washer, but this just takes a little bit more effort. All right, folks, that's it. Get a completely studded tire. They're working out pretty well. So the next step, I'm going to line the entire inside of this with just regular old duct tape, and I'm going to toss it all back together. All right, tire is back on. Let's see if I pinched tube number 2 in a row. Don't see any signs of leaks. The bead seated nicely. We're going to be ready to rock. So when I installed the wheel, the studs are hitting the swing arm right here. So I'm going to take an angle grinder and I'm going to clearance these reinforcements out of the way. As you can see, I got rid of all the swing arm reinforcement in there. I'm going to have to revisit that at another time and probably brace it before it rips the linkage off and breaks. But for now, it clears the studs, so that's all I care about. Well, we have some bad news for the front tire. It's pretty well destroyed, and they don't have enough meat to hold this kind of stud, I guess. It's just wobbling around. It won't tighten up or anything like that. That's just going to destroy my tubes. So I'm just going to toss the new front tire on, keep the bad boy rear on there, and we'll see how it goes. Still got fuel. That'll do it. Alright everyone, we're here on the side of the trail. I honestly thought I ran out of gas. She was running pretty good. Back up there, made it down to this bottom hill and it started to bog. I checked my fuel, still good. But damn is that full of snow. And I didn't pack that in here for a YouTube video here, folks. That is just packed full of snow. That's not good. It's not good. I'm gonna see if I can't clean it out. Get her up on out of here. So as some of you keen observers might have noticed, I no longer have that bolted up rear tire anymore. I'm still out here playing in the snow, but I'm doing it without studs and it's kind of scary. So as with most ideas, they sound really good on paper and then sometimes they don't quite work out like you think they're going to work out in real life, I guess. So after popping the initial tube, I realized that tubes were just not going to work because I continued to pop 1, 2, and a third tube before coming to this conclusion. As you saw in the video, I also tried packing foam from Walmart. And while that worked for a short time, it ended up getting water saturated, freezing, and then causing the tire to bulge and do a bunch of weird stuff. Ultimately, the studs rubbed down on the swing arm where I ground out, and they started to rub on the side of the chain, so I pulled the tire off. After doing a little research online and some Facebook forum browsing, I found that tennis balls might be the solution to my problem. But for now, I'm just running the stock tire, or not the stock tire, I'm running the Pirelli Scorpion, which for a mid-soft tire, it doesn't really do so hot in the soft. I think the lugs are a little too close together and the center lugs are pretty stiff for the bike. I also run like 20 pounds of pressure in it because I really don't want to deal with popping any more tubes. I digress. It works. It doesn't work as well as the studs did this snow, but it's more fun to ride it than look at it in the garage all broken. While I unfortunately do not have a sneak peek into episode 4 because I honestly haven't started filming it yet, I do have everything sitting in my Amazon cart waiting to buy, and we're about to do some lighting upgrades with this. So stay tuned for episode 4 in the upcoming weeks.